The level of intoxication, the vulnerability of customers, and the blanket drug use seen during the joint visit on the joint visit is unacceptable to police and hope would be unacceptable to the subcommittee. The visit followed a period of engagement where police tried to assist the licence holder to promote the licence and objectives and respond to the issues highlighted. They chose not to rise to the challenge and to mislead police, and here we are now. Please keep in mind that the visit occurred before 20 past midnight and there were only 23 customers present in the venue. If the licence holder can't promote the public safety and prevention of crime disorder objectives a couple of hours into trading with only 23 customers present, how can the subcommittee believe they can achieve this with their capacity of 200 and open until 0400 hours? On the 9th of April, a compliance visit was conducted by police licensing. This is documented in Appendix C. During the visit, the following issues and breaches of conditions were found: lack of documented refusals, lack of Challenge 25 signage, lack of DPS being present at key times, lack of door supervision policy, CCTV not working, no management of the outside crowd, and concerns relating to crowd which are attending the premises in relation to drugs. Following this visit, Ms Taylor was supplied with the following documentation: age verification policy, sales of alcohol authorisation, Challenge 25 poster, refusal logs, staff training declaration, drugs policy, drugs presentation, and licensed premises drugs handover form. On the 12th of July, a compliance visit was conducted by police and council licensing. This is documented in Appendix H. During the visit, the following issues and breaches of conditions were found: Annex 1, breach of mandatory conditions relating to employment of suspended SIA. Annex 2, breach of condition 2, keeping the toilets in a good state of repair. Annex 3, breach of condition 1, breach of ID scanner and failing to notify of a fault. Annex 3, breach of condition 2, breach of CCTV condition, the CCTV not having the correct time. Annex 3, breach of condition 5, breach of SIA condition not having 4 door staff on duty. Annex 3, breach of condition 6, breach of staff training as in the staff were not trained. Annex 3, breach of condition 9, breach of body worn video, no footage available on request. Annex 3, breach of condition 10, breach of written door supervisor's policy as there was no policy. Further findings from the visit included drug taking, intoxication and criminal offences. As you can see, the situation has become worse, not better. Any action taken since the submission of the police review, in our view, is too little too late. The licence holder has had every opportunity to address the problems and comply with the licence and has failed to do so. Police have no faith in Ms Taylor or Mr Robson to be able to operate a safe licensed premises. Police have no faith in their ability to promote the licensing objectives. In the initial review submission, police have stated that numerous intelligence reports have been received. This intelligence is not evidence in itself. However, police wish to highlight the similarities to the reports. All intelligence received states there are misuse and there is misuse and dealing of illegal drugs at the venue. Sections 11.24 of the 182 guidance says a number of reviews may arise in connection with crime. This is not directly connected with licensed activities. For example, reviews may arise because of drugs problems at the premises. It goes on to remind us that the subcommittee are not required to establish innocent or guilt of the individual, but to ensure the promotion of the crime and prevention objective. To this end, please consider the drug swab results from the premises in April and July. The multiple customers who have been searched by police on exit from the club and found in possession of cocaine and or ketamine. The customers who was witnessed by a PCC licensing officer on the 12th of May snorting suspected drugs inside the venue. Then consider on the balance of probabilities based on the information presented to you today, is there likely to be drug dealing occurring at this nightclub? If you determine that drug dealing is likely to be occurring, then you must see the serious risk to public safety and crime and disorder at the premises. Sections 11.27 of the 182 guidance says there is a certain criminal activity that may arise in connection with licensed premises which should be treated particularly seriously. These are the use of the premises for the sale and distribution of drugs controlled under the Misuse of Drugs Act 1971 and the laundering of the proceeds of drugs crime. Sections 11.28 of the guidance says it is envisaged that licensing authorities, the police, the Home Office and other law enforcement agencies which are responsible authorities will use the review procedures effectively to deter such activities and crime. Where reviews arise and the licensing authority determines that the crime prevention objective is being undermined through the premises being used to further crimes, it is expected that revocation of the licence, even in the first incident, should be considered. In closing, there is clear evidence of regular increasing drug use at the licensed premises. This alone is a serious risk to the safety of the public. Police have tried to assist the licence holder by highlighting these issues and providing useful policies and training to the staff relating to identifying and managing issues with drugs. This has not been acted upon, and both Mr. Robinson and Ms. Taylor attempted to hide this from police when they said they had trained all their staff when in fact they had not. It is likely there is drug dealing on the licensed premises due to the frequency and volume of drug-related incidents and the multiple members of the public who have contacted the police and the local authority to report this. The licence holder has not been fully compliant with the premises licence conditions at any point since opening in April 2024 to the visit on the 12th of July 2024. It is not unreasonable to have expected full compliance before opening for the first time. This is despite attempts by police to address the areas of concern and provide assistance and guidance to the licence holder. As a result, every night they have opened after the nightclub, the licence holder and staff have been committing multiple offences under Section 136 of the Licensing Act. There is no evidence of the staff at afters refusing a sale of alcohol and preventing drunkenness on the premises. Further, there is clear evidence of significant drunkenness being permitted on the premises. This is despite efforts by police in April to encourage the licence holder to adopt and use refusal register, but not taken action since April. Customers have since become drunk, vulnerable and victims of crime such as sexual assaults and other violence. When the subcommittee are making their decision today, you have a number of options. Do nothing, modify the licence, exclude an activity, remove the designated premises supervisor, suspend the licence or revoke the licence. Please consider sections 11.23 of the 182 guidance. Where premises are found to be trading irresponsibly, the licensing authority should not hesitate where appropriate to do so, to take tough action to tackle the problems at the premises and where other measures are deemed insufficient to revoke the licence. The issues raised by police today are attributable to some of the poorest management of licensed premises this police licensing team have ever encountered. It is directly due to inaction and failures by Ms. Taylor and Mr. Robinson to execute their duties under the Licensing Act 2003 after engaging and making attempts to assist them both. They have been misleading to police in an attempt to cover up their failures. Please revoke this premises licence. With these operators in place, the premises is presenting a very significant risk to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Or do you just need a minute? Do you need a minute? There's a lot of information.
I've got a couple.
Yeah, go.
Today, I assume today.
Yeah.
Blessings, that's right. Hi. Yeah, thanks for that. Obviously, a lot to go through on that. I just wanted to go through with you, just to get a bit of wider context on this. Would you say that the level of the antisocial behaviour is typical for this stretch of area in Guildhall Walk?
Yes, I would say that Guildhall Walk has got our highest concentration of sort of antisocial and violent crime within the nighttime economy in the Portsmouth area. So, yes, it is to be expected that there is some crime and disorder there.
Okay, Okay, and in your opinion, obviously, is this level of antisocial behaviour typical of similar newer establishments that have just opened?
I wouldn't say so, no. Obviously, there are established venues in and around Portsmouth, some being newer than others, but the resources and engagement that Afters has attracted has been significant compared to other venues, yes.
And one more, if I may, Chair. Yeah, I was just going to say, obviously looking through the papers as well as listening to what you've got to say there, does the when you're talking about the drug swabbing, when this is done in any other licensed premises, is the bar and the pot wash area that obviously came up positive when you did that, are they done typically when you do drug swabbing, or was it just because of particular suspicions at this particular establishment?
It wouldn't be uncommon to do the entirety of the venue when we do go out and do drug swabs, but I think due to the issues raised over the previous months, there was a need to do a full swab on that venue.
All right, thank you. No more from me.
Kadir?
I have two questions. How often do you go to other similar license premises?
Hi, Colin Pollard. We attend licensed premises during the week when we need to do follow-up engagement, and most weekends the licensing team have officers on late duties, which is until 4 o'clock in the morning. There's usually a minimum of 2, sometimes as many as 4 or 5, and we cover the entire county when we're on duty. We create a list internally of those premises which might need some additional checks because, for example, we may have current concerns or current volume of crime, so they will get visited more often, if that answers your question.
It did, but one more question. What did it start initial, obviously you've gone intensively to do all the drug tests and everything.
I apologise, you broke, sorry, could you...
Sorry, what led you to go into this afters initially? What was the first case that you were reported to?
Initially, we came across the licence holder and a partner outside whilst they were conducting renovation works inside. That was the first time we discovered that there was some changes afoot and coming, and that's when the advice was given to contact the authorities before opening so we could give some advice and run through the licence. So that would have been March time, possibly late February, early March time.
So before they opened, as a licensing department, did we have to do any check? Are they aware of everything that we required them to do before they were given the green light?
So this is why we required them to notify us when they were going to open and to make contact so that we could give them exactly that advice. What should have triggered would have been ordinarily, in a more usual set of circumstances, a licence transfer or variation would have been submitted in advance of opening, but that was not the case here, unfortunately, so even that didn't prompt us and alert us to what was happening.
Thank you.
Dave, any more?
None from me.
No. I'm just going to ask, it's stated on your report about people coming in with fake ID and they were allowed to enter the premises without being checked. How do you know they were fake IDs?
I don't have any evidence to, or anything tangible to give to you on that. It's a duty report completed by the sergeant who conducted the nighttime economy patrols in Guildhall. He's passed the information on to us, so unfortunately that's all I've got in relation to that.
And I think Kadir asked it and answered, but I just want to double check. So you had no contact with them prior to them opening, from seeing them outside doing renovations?
So, as my colleague said, it came to light because it was myself that found the door open to the venue back in late February. So we made contact with him then, and I suggested then that before he opens to meet with both police and council licensing to go through the licence and make sure everything was in place prior to that. and I don't believe there was any contact after that sort of initial contact.
Obviously, you've outlined quite a large amount of criminal activity. Has there been any guilt, criminal convictions, or anything from what's happened at Afters?
So, as I said, they're listed off a number of incidents that have occurred. Most of them would have had some formal outcome, not necessarily a charge and conviction at court, but there are out-of-court disposals open to us, so a lot of those would have been dealt with out of court by means of a community resolution or a caution. I can look them up if you need it, but as I said, most of them would have been, obviously drugs being found on the floor won't have an outcome, but everyone found in possession would have been dealt with in an appropriate way or proportionate way.
And then, as someone that doesn't know much about drug swabs, you've said obviously there was like 11.6. Like, is that a high amount? Is that like, what is that out of?
So obviously it goes from nothing up to whatever the machine its highest reading is, which I'm not too sure of. But let me find the appendix. Yeah. So in Appendix I, obviously PC Swallow is one of the main users of the machine. So he has put down a reading of 9+ would indicate very recent of 0 to 6 hours direct contact either in person or on a surface.
Where's this on the report, just so I can...
Sorry, Appendix I, duty report from PC Swallow. So he's given a breakdown of the readings of anything from sort of 0.1 up to 9+. It'd be page 44.
Thank you, I must have missed it, that's all. Members, any other questions? No? Okay. Do you have any questions?
I have 3. Sorry. Thank you. I'm using it for Wi-Fi. You say that there's obviously been a problem with drugs possession, and I accept that, but you also say that you think there may be supplying of drugs or even money laundering. There's not been any convictions or prosecutions from anything like that, has there?
Not for those two offences, no. Obviously there is intelligence to suggest that that's been going on, and that's what we're basing it on.
Can I just get you to direct it through me so that they can hear you if you're on live stream? Just speak through to the microphone, is that all right?
And my other question I was going to ask you about was in relation to the security footage that we watched, because on there it seemed confused as to how these security staff were hired, but the Security Industry Authority investigated it and took no action. Is that correct?
So the Security Industry Authority would have been made aware of the employment of the security staff, and they have reviewed it and decided to take no further action. So that is their decision to take. It's not to say that there's evidence to suggest that it has or hasn't happened, but they've made that decision through their own processes to take no further action.
And in relation to some of the cases that you presented, you said that they've had like small numbers of people going, but like for example this weekend or the weekend before there was like 150 members of the public there. Do you agree with that?
I can't make any comment on that. I did visit a week ago Friday and counted about 20 people in there shortly after opening. But as I say, without any licensing officers visiting over the last 2 weekends, I can't comment on that.
My last question, I promise. When you visited last weekend, were things better than they were back in April?
Apologies. I did visit on the Friday amongst a lot of other visits that I had to conduct, so I didn't conduct a full compliance visit on that Friday. But as the review paperwork had gone in, the expectation, you know, they would have put things in place. So again, it's that sort of too little too late.
I'm sorry, I have to ask one more question. I'm asking for a yes or a no. Has it improved or not?
I can't comment on that because I didn't do a compliance visit, so I can't say whether the conditions were complied with or not. But my visit was like it was any other weekend. I have no comment to make on it. There was no concerns raised.
Members, did you get any questions that you wanted to add? Sometimes they trigger you to ask them more. No? Perfect. Right, I'm going to pass over to Nikki now then.
Thank you, Chair. I will try and keep it brief for you because I know you've got a lot of information to absorb today. So obviously, yes, the licensing authority has made a representation in respect of this licence, and it is in relation to crime, prevention of crime and disorder, public safety and protection of children from harm. We're quite satisfied that in terms of the evidence being put forward to you today, that there's a direct link to these premises and the way that they have been conducted. Members, you might be aware that this premises or this site has had a long-standing history of being a licensed premises, and certainly they've operated as a late-night entertainment venue within the cumulative impact area. My letter on page 78 obviously sets out there what the cumulative impact area is, and I won't go through that because I know Derek has also covered that within his report for you. So, as we said, the current premises licence holder is a limited company, Afters Nightclub Limited. That company was first incorporated in January this year, end of January this year, and the sole director of this company is Miss Lydia Taylor. I will correct, as of today, it says that there is currently no designated premises supervisor nominated on the licence. That was at the time that this representation was written on the 20th of August. As Derek has said, Lydia has taken over being the DPS, or has submitted an application, so it's still a pending application, to be the DPS at these premises. Running through the issues, you will see on page 79 that there is a lot of information there in relation to designated premises supervisors, and particularly the frequency of changes within a very short period of time. This is unusual to see this, as Derek has said, and that does allow for potentially management, and particularly for a new premises, that if you've got a change in management, you've got no consistency in terms of starting that business up. You mentioned Miss Hurst or Miss H in your question to Derek, so maybe I can cover that now. Because we were concerned about the amount of applications that were being made for if I call them DPSs, I'm sure everybody's familiar with that in the room. We considered to interview Miss H, and there were concerns which are highlighted there that she had very poor understanding of the Licensing Act and her obligations as DPS. And there were also concerns there that she provided inaccurate information in terms of exactly how many occasions or how few occasions she was actually there managing the premises when it was open in the early hours of the morning. I'll go through to the history again, that there was the last DPS before Lydia was Mr. W, and he made application to be DPS, and a formal application was made by the police due to concerns about his suitability. Those are set out in general on page 80, and again, if you're aware of the Licensing Act, and it is on exceptional grounds that the police will make an application to object to the variation of a licence in respect of a DPS. Subsequently, that DPS removed himself on the 14th of August, and since then there was no DPS on the licence until Lydia obtained her personal licence qualification and submitted an application. I won't go through every, because you've got paged chronology of licensing service engagement with afters. We've set out there exactly what contact and to what extent the licensing authority has had with the operators. My visit that I made, and I think that's referred to I think that was 5th of April. Yeah, 5th of April, because we were aware that the premises were intending to open, notwithstanding any previous contact other than what's listed above, and that there were fire safety issues at that time related to the premises. I made a visit with the fire officer with the premises licence to establish if the conditions were compliant with the conditions, as the operators wanted to open that evening. There were a number of issues that Mr. Robinson said that he was going to address and was in the middle of addressing, and there were a lot of workmen on site trying to, I think, bring the premises to a standard that they could open later that evening. However, having those discussions, it was clear to me, and it's as in that my letter on page 82, there was no evidence of staff training measures in place. And on that basis, we had a general discussion that without staff training, there would be a breach of condition, and Mr. Robinson confirmed that on that basis, he would not be opening that night. So it was quite a surprise to find out subsequently that the premises had in fact opened, notwithstanding that discussion earlier that afternoon. Paragraph 3 sets out the chronology of compliance visits to afters, and this is, these visits have been undertaken by licensing enforcement officers. And you can see that there were some, I'm not going to go through them because I'm sure you can read through and ask me any questions, but you can see that there are a significant amount of visits taking up my officer's time on these premises, and unfortunately it's an ongoing problem with breaches of licensing conditions. I'll just keep going through. And that is not usual for licensing officers to have to visit a premises so many times over a really short period of time. We're talking here from end of March, April to date. That is of significant concern that we're still having to undertake these visits and finding problems even months after we've had time to discuss matters and offered guidance and offered advice. We have had additional concerns raised by other people and agencies. I have made those anonymous and confidential for obvious reasons that people don't want to be named in providing that information. But this information, this intel, has come via legitimate sources that would have an awareness of how the premises were being run. And again, it makes for concerning reading that premises are not being managed in the way that we would expect, and to some extent endorses the concerns that we have raised as a licensing authority, and indeed the Chief Officer of Police has raised through our engagement. The last issue, you've discussed the Security Industry Authority involvement, and also there are current matters relating to building control and not applying for building regulation approval for works being undertaken to the premises, which is again non-compliant with regulatory matters. I do understand now that that matter has been resolved to the extent that there is now engagement with building control in terms of authorising the works that have started without consent. I won't go through this summary particularly because, again, there's a lot of it, other than to say that I as a licensing officer, I don't say it, but it's 34 years in my role in licensing, and this by far is the worst premises that I have had to deal with in my licensing career, if you like. It's just a catalogue of disasters that I don't see that we can offer any other sanctions to you as a recommendation, members. I don't think there are any other alternatives that will work, that will promote the licensing objectives, other than for this licence to be revoked. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Members, any questions? No. Nikki, I've only got one question, because on some of the complaints, I know they're anonymous, but some of them look to me like what food and hygiene would look out. Have food and hygiene been out to the premises? Because they're like mould in the ice machines, soda lines left unclean. So have we had, because they've got a kitchen, so has food and hygiene been involved in this at all, or no?
I did bring it to the attention of regulatory services, but I don't think they paid a visit.
Any? No. Do you have any questions?
In relation to your intelligence, you're probably not going to reveal the source, but I think it's a former member of security staff that was sacked. Are you willing to confirm whether that's correct or not?
It's from a number of people.
My question is, one of them is a sacked former security member of staff. Is that right?
I think there is, yes, I can confirm that some of the information has come from security companies that were previously employed by the operators.
And would you be willing to work with them going forward? I appreciate you say it's a catalogue of errors, but would you be willing to promote the relationship now?
I think, as the police have said, it is a case of it's too much, too little, too late. And the dealings that we've had, I'm not satisfied that we could establish a relationship moving forward, because we've tried so hard up until now and it's not worked, that I can't see that working in the future.
When did you last visit?
The licensing authority last visited, bear with me, I'm just trying to find, I think it was, thank you. All of my documents are, that would have been the 9th of August 2024.
Sorry, can I turn my back? Thank you. We think that somebody called Ross attended more recently, like after they reopened late in August. Do you have any record of it?
Not subsequent to this representation, but I believe that Ross was trying to assist because of the application for, I think, for Lydia for the varying of the DPS. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if there had been further engagement. And I can confirm that if you want me to check.
If you can, I'd be grateful. Thank you. And then I have a question for you about some of the things that you said about the pub watch matters. So am I right in thinking that as of July this year, there were only 3 people on the pub watch ban list?
I'm not the best person to answer that. I think the police would be able to give you more of a suitable response.
I don't know what the exact numbers of bans have been on specific dates, but the pub watch for that area of Portsmouth is fairly new. It's been in operation. In fact, the night after it first opened, I was out and discovered they were opening that night because I was out trying to get the venues to sign up and attend the first pub watch meeting, which I think was the following week. So since March time is how long the pub watch in that area has been running. The bans weren't set up for another month, which took us to April, so I couldn't confirm a number of 3, but it's very possibly a number of 3. Currently, there are approximately 10 or a dozen on there to date, if that helps.
And it does. And Afters submitted one of the people that are now on the ban watch. Is that correct?
Not that I'm aware of. I can recall one proposal from Afters, but we didn't have the detail in order to be able to get that person on. It was raised at the meeting, if that's the one that we're discussing, but we didn't have any detail about the individual or photos, or police didn't attend for that individual, if that makes sense. We couldn't share any information into pub watch.
I'm sorry to keep asking you the questions, but you're the best person to answer them. But then that would demonstrate that Afters are demonstrating some compliance with procedure and policy if they're suggesting these people to go on the list.
Sorry, what's the question?
It's that Afters are trying to comply with their licensing objectives. They are trying to work together with the authorities if they're suggesting people to go on the list.
That in itself is one measure out of many. And yes, they did propose somebody on that occasion.
I have no more questions. Thank you.
Oh, let me tick. Right, I think that is everyone. Yeah. Any more questions? No. Yeah, of course you can. Well, it's over to you now anyway. Just to let you know, things that I like to hear is just, because I'm going to ask them anyway, is what the premises does, what's it is about, what do they do, everything like that. So if you can include that in your opening, that'd be amazing.
I might have to get Johnny with me at some point to answer these questions. But in essence, what I'm saying is that this got off to a poor start, and I can't sit here and say to anybody that they engage with the police and they engage with the licensing authority. It was a struggle, but things have improved, and I say that that's really important because one of the options you have is to take no action, allow this to continue, if you consider that there has actually been an improvement, and if that happens, and I persuade you of that, then the police and the licensing authorities do need to work with them to make sure that everything's in order. So I'll start then with the security issues. They've had major security issues, which have improved as things have gone along. It's right that there were issues with it, but it's suggested from there, and from the clips that we watched, that they were committing some sort of offence, but the security agency themselves concluded that they hadn't. And that's important because it's not then a flagrant breach of the licence condition with regards to security staff. It's suggested in lots of evidence that there's evidence or implications of them committing really serious criminal offences, money laundering, drug supply, and yet there's no real evidence of it at all. It's just speculation, and you're asked to infer that that might be happening as a result of there being drugs possession in the premises itself. I say that they were closed for a period, and that's because they had no DPS. And in that time, they've made major improvements to how they're operating their company. I understand that the police went last Friday. Things there were better. The police won't accept that when I ask them the question today, but things, I say, have to have been better. The police might not like my submission on that point, but the fact of the matter was they were cooperating with them. They did answer their questions, and we have been cooperating with them since the notice itself was served. And I say that's not too little too late. They can improve as they go along. They ought to have had their house in order to start with, but ultimately they have tried to get better. In relation to what I think you should do, I say leave the licence to continue. I say that it's important that you consider that some parts of the evidence submitted, specifically by the licensing authority, again is hearsay. There are some personal attacks in there. Things are said about what Lydia was wearing when they last spoke with her. I say that's irrelevant. They're portraying her as if she was on drugs herself and looked inappropriate, but she had no duty to get dressed up to see the licensing authority, you know? And I say that there's been a personal attack, and that's important. I think that going forwards, they've got a lot to do. I know that they're going to retain my firm for advice going forward. They are also planning on serving food on the top floor of the premises, and I say that that will change the scope and the feel of the business, because people won't be going there simply to take drugs or party, as it were. So yes, that's my submission in relation to it all. I don't know if I've covered your questions, and if not, can I ask for Mr. Robinson to come and help me answer them? Thank you. Would you mind coming to sit with me? Thank you. Because they're going to ask things I can't answer.
I'm hoping it was a slip of the tongue. Do you mean they drink, not take drugs? You said they take drugs at the premises. I'm hoping that you didn't mean that. I understand there's been a lot about it, so I just want to double check. Members, have you got any questions?
Hi. Thanks for that. One of the things I've noticed on the the observations and submissions where you've gone through things on there, it says the licence holder has used the recent period of closure to, and it's got some bullet points on there. It says complete works. Does that include the things that are discussed, like the cluttered back area, and it mentions a leak from the ceiling going onto the dance floor? Does that include that having been completed now?
When taking over the building, it hadn't been open for a year. It was a massive state of disrepair. The prohibition notice from Hampshire Fire was actually served on the previous owners, and Ian Jeffrey did attend. He didn't serve the prohibition because the company proprietor said that they weren't going to trade again. So once that was served on us, and that wasn't knowledge given to us by the licensing authority, even though they may have had previous knowledge of it, we put that right straight away. It cost me £7 grand to fix a fire alarm. The leaks in the building were due to old plumbing works. That leak particularly was to do with a faulty seal. That was fixed in April, actually. That leak that's mentioned is God, that's months ago. We closed over the bank holiday period because our DPS was told to resign. So in changing it to Lydia, it took a little bit of time with Water Legal Council to issue a personal licence. We chose to close over the bank holiday weekend and do some renovations for two reasons, really. A, bank holiday weekend, even though it could be particularly lucrative to the business, as Victorious was on, also posed certain risks for us, because you would have other people that not necessarily from the area coming down that could have caused necessarily risk and harm and didn't promote licensing objectives. So we used that time period rather than take the risk of opening to make some changes in the venue. So raised the dance floor up and made some other changes internally. But everything that was listed in terms of leak, that was fixed in April. Sorry.
Kadir, do you have any questions? Go for it.
Obviously, we heard about allegations and the drug issues and training. What step have you taken since then?
Well, actually, following that compliance visit, I did actually invite Colin to attend our staff meeting the next day. I did not get a response to that, actually. That was before we were under review, so we printed it off, got all staff to sign it so we can evidence the signing of it. I think the 2 staff members that you saw in the video had only worked for the business for one of them a handful of days, one of them a week. They had actually attended our monthly meeting. In retrospective of that, we now print them off, sign them, get them to date them, and keep accurate training records, including the security firm that took over recently.
One more question. Obviously, we heard from our officers in licensing. It costs City Council for officers to go and visit you, and there are a lot of places. So why does it take you so long to comply with all this? What was the reason behind you not cooperating? That's how I would say it.
I think some of it's a learning curve to us. There's a lot of procedures that are in place. Some of them are listed on some procedures are listed on a licensing document that are fairly black and white, and some of them are not. And even to this date, there's still debates on some of those conditions that I can't get a straight answer from either the licensing authority or the police. One of them was mentioned was about training records. So, it says on the license that bar staff need to have a staff training. It doesn't actually say what the training has to be. So, doing my own research, it has to be from an accredited training provider. I did ask Nikki on that visit which training provider, which she couldn't give me an answer for that. And one of the other officers said that I need to deliver the staff training myself. So, if I can't get a straight answer from the authorities that are supposed to be giving me the advice, it'd be very difficult for us to maybe comply with all those regulations, which I think we do our best to do so. Another one would be about we're supposed to have a noise limiting device. And I've had discussions with members of this room, actually, with both Derek, with Nikki, with Ben and Colin from the police. All 4 of them actually give a completely different answer to what that device is supposed to be, how it's operated, and whether EHO can actually give me a decibel limit to operate that too in a non-residential area. So again, if there's 4 members here that are there to give us guidance, how am I supposed to know which one it is? But that's one small part of a license, and I think we comply with all the major things very, very well.
How many people do you have working for you?
9 currently, including security, but they don't work for me directly. So for the business, actually 6.
But you said security is privately.
They are
so
private.
they are not part of
sorry, yeah. We have 6. There's myself, Lydia, Jack, who recently left. There's Abby. There's 6 employees.
Okay, so I'm just going to go back to your question, which was about the Hampshire Fire, like when they came out to you. Why did you not think about getting them to come in prior to opening, bearing in mind you've obviously got public coming in there?
We did actually. So we made a lot of changes to the venue, including the electrical work. The electrical work is actually part of the landlord's responsibility to keep up to date. So we noticed there was considerable extensive work that needed doing to keep the place in general repair. So I think we spent in excess of £80,000 on repairs to the actual venue, which is an investment from mostly myself. The fire alarm was working. We got a visit from Hampshire Fire while we were in the middle of having a new one fitted, because I noticed that the actual the fire alarm safety certificates weren't currently kept up to date, so we got a new firm in to do them. While the guys were in doing the works, as stated in one of the statements made earlier, during them doing some work, they came in and served as a prohibition notice, which I deemed highly unfair. So we identified ourselves that we needed to fix a problem that was already there. While the work was being carried out, we were audited by Hampshire Fire, again, without knowledge to ourselves. And that we self-lifted that prohibition notice because we were completely compliant with that.
Did you open in this time period when you needed to get fire regs up?
We opened the week previous. The fire alarm was working at that point, and then we made some changes internally to the layout of the building, had new places put in, while the workmen, so we weren't open at the time period while the workmen were on site. We were due to open on the Friday, and all the work was completed before we opened. So while we were open to the members of the public, we were compliant with the regulations.
Okay, just so to get clarification, because you said that they did come in before you opened. So is that, so you knew and then they gave you this notice. When did they give you this notice? When you brought them in?
They showed up unannounced to serve a
Right.
prohibition notice because they tried to serve it on the previous proprietors. So we had already had a lot of work extensively carried out on the building before we opened.
So when, because I asked, my question was, did you call them in to do checks before you opened? You said yes.
We didn't call them in, no. We
Okay.
identified the
Fine.
electrical safety wasn't to regulations. And
Right, fine.
We had a team come out and put in a load of electrical safety work.
Right, okay, got it. And then obviously, when did you open officially?
Officially, under premises license, we would have opened in April, but we did trade for a one-off temporary event, which we served a temporary event notice into both the council and the police for.
Okay. So when the licensing team came out in the middle of July, there was 8 licensing conditions that were breached, like lack of SIA staff, CCTV, recorded body camera footage, and so forth. How was that coming about after? Because you expect probably like 1 or 2 niggles when you first open, I get that. But obviously from April to July, I'm just trying to understand what's gone on.
Well, on correction, I think that it was very much expected that we met all conditions from the day of opening. And actually, we opened under a temporary event notice initially, although there is some debate about that due to issues in the council actually receiving the paperwork, not from our side, from the government portal. But no, we were audited the day before and actually the weekend after the visit where we were compliant. So we had some changes to the security team. So we identified there was a problem internally with a security team that we hired from SCS Security. Innes, who's made a representation, who's in this court, is actually head of our new security team. We self-identified that actually there's some practices that our security team were doing that we didn't like. We chose to replace them. There was an interim period of about 3 days where there was a crossover period. Them taking over. The first night that my new security team were taking over was the night where we were audited by the council and the police jointly. I think if that visit had been a week later or even a couple of days later, I don't think some of those conditions would have been broken. And certainly not now.
Okay. And just to confirm, I know this seems obvious, but the kitchen and behind the bar is completely off limits to customers. Is that correct?
There's no commercial kitchen in the venue. We're having one put in at the moment.
So you've got no kitchen whatsoever?
There's no kitchen. There's a sink to wash glasses in. Well, it's not to wash glasses. Okay. It's to rinse glasses. We have a glass washer.
Okay, fine. And that's not available to anyone but the staff?
Occasionally, there is a toilet out there that we've built. It occasionally has access to DJs and other promoters that come. They don't tend to use the public toilets. We had Sosa play, who's a very big DJ. We have to escort him to the toilets and then back because he gets hounded by patrons that are there.
Do you carry out random drug tests on staff at all?
We do not, but we'd be open to the possibility of doing that.
Obviously, most of the breaches and issues you've basically admitted to. How do we trust that whatever we decide you would do? How can we trust what you're saying now will happen?
As far as business owners is your... for me or to Adam, sorry.
I think as a plan, we have been trying to cooperate with the police and licensing authority. They say it's too little too late, but we have tried to engage and we'll maintain that we do that afterwards. I suggest that you add the further condition to the licence that's suggested in the written submissions, which is about having the DPS on premises all of the on the premises all of the times that the venue selling alcohol.
Why was Lydia not the first thought of call to become the DPS?
It's a bit of an odd one, and it kind of lends into my early point of not knowing exactly what route to go down. So we emailed, I emailed the council directly and asked what the procedures were for taking over. So we're due to open our premises soon. What do I need to do to get that done? So I think that's one point that was made. I had a conversation with Derek on the phone about what we need to do to submit Lydia's personal licence, and I think he made a suggestion to me on the phone. I probably have a recording of it, but it's that if we wait until we were going to live above the premises, but if we waited until we moved in, we'd have to submit it to Portsmouth Council. So we chose to wait until we moved in to submit Lydia's personal licence application. That's why we traded under a temporary event notice for that one-off event, because Lydia wasn't in possession of her a personal license to be a DPS, and obviously we can't trade without a DPS, but the thought processes was that she was always going to take over as the premises supervisor and the licensee, because that it's one person responsible for the whole venue, except for myself as the duty manager. She didn't receive a DBS back in time to open for that weekend. Nikki said it would have been available to get a DPS or to get her personal license application done in that time period, because we actually had another temporary event notice rejected for that weekend. So I called a friend that I knew called Joel Wheeler and asked him if he would come be our DPS. He just left his job at the Park Tavern. He's run pubs and clubs in the Portsmouth area for 10 plus years. I've personally known the individual for 7 plus years, and we thought it would be great to have his experience on board. Mr. Wheeler was the DPS that the police put an objection into, but only in his second tenure at Afters. The first time they put no objection into him being the DPS, and we thought it would be great to have someone that was experienced come help us run the venue.
Obviously, it takes time to get a personal license, I appreciate that. But when you're setting up a business, I'm guessing it's not something you just wake up the next day and you're going to do. Why not in the lead up of time was this not being organised in the background, so we're not at this point where there's been quite a lot?
It was actually. Lydia had done her personal license exam course way before we opened the venue. I've also done my own one. To actually get a personal license, so you need an up-to-date DBS check. I think when we originally took it down, it hadn't come through. Then it did come through, but Joel was our DPS, so we had no real reason to add Lydia on as a personal license holder, because she's already done the qualification. Having the card, I guess, doesn't really make any difference to the qualification that you do online. And when we went to change it, we made the mistake of we didn't do the advanced checking service, and we had to reapply for the DBS check, and she lost her passport. So once we rectified that, she's got her personal license, and we put her on. But there was no need to, in short.
So not much luck with that part. Members, any questions? Go for it.
Sorry, how many years of experience do you have running a similar business? Do you have any experience previously?
I worked in a pub in my younger years, but this is actually my fourth business. I've exited 3 companies, and this is an investment for mine and Lydia as a personal undertaking to do something good in the local community.
You worked in a pub?
I worked in a pub in my
you were running a
late
nightclub?
teens. Yeah, I'm not.
So it's not the same thing?
No, it's not. No.
It's not the same thing. So you have no experience?
I mean,
in that.
Experience in meeting compliance standards is, running any. I run a business of. No, not in this trade, I think would be your question.
Any more?
No.
I know you've mentioned that you feel that the police and licensing team have been intrusive, but obviously, they feel that you've been probably badgered a little bit. But with all the evidence and everything like that, can you explain why you feel like that?
I don't think I said the word badgered, but I think we're listing 4. Okay, well, I just no. Yeah, I think they've listed 4 of 50 plus visits in this hearing today. So from speaking to the other solicitor that we considered hiring, they deemed 40 plus, 50 plus visits for any venue is irregular, of which we've only talked about 4 of those in the hearing, and they've only listed 4 of those as part of the review process. So I deem it a bit strange that if they visited the venue 40 plus times and found no issues, or no issues where they would submit them to a hearing, why only choose to pick 4 that paint us in a particularly bad light.
So you're saying other visits they've came and there was no issues? Is that what you've just said?
I didn't say there was no issues. I said that they've not chosen to highlight any issues on their visits to us, and surely the point of them coming out is to make sure that we're meeting the compliance standards and
yes,
honouring the licence objectives.
So, sorry, clarification. So obviously every time they've come with a report is saying that there's been breaches in place. Are you saying they should have highlighted maybe the good things you were doing? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, I say that the review that was made for you guys to look at is cites 4 visits that were carried out by the team, but there's actually been 40 plus, 50 plus visits.
Okay. So you're saying there's way more?
Well, factually, yes, way more.
Right, okay.
I'm sure they can get a copy of those if they keep the records internally.
Fine. Licensing team, do you have any questions for them?
Yes, a few from police between myself and Ben, if we may. Just in relation to some of what was just been said, with regards to Ms Taylor's eventual application for a personal licence to then eventually come on as the DPS currently in submission and in consultation. You said you waited to move in so that you could apply to Portsmouth Council. Ms Taylor, or through your representative, which council did you apply for your personal licence through, please?
Waterlooville Council.
Thank you.
But that, sorry, just to expand, that's because I moved back to my mum's temporarily in Waterlooville.
Okay, thank you. You talked about the police objection to the very DPS for Mr W's second term as DPS at the venue. What you didn't highlight there is that Mr W wasn't actually going to be working at Afters and had another job in Winchester and wasn't present during that period of immediate application where he becomes the DPS once submitted. And he wasn't going to be working there, and that formed part of the police objection, didn't it?
The objection that you listed on the removal of Joel as the DPS was actually in relation to something that happened in 2022.
They included that, yes?
It included that, but no objection. You didn't make that objection during his first tenure as our DPS. And as the committee heard from the police earlier, that they only make these objections to someone being the DPS in particular exonerating circumstances.
Being absent from the premises for me is an important aspect to consider. We have some further questions. It's in relation to the document that's been submitted on your behalves in advance of the hearings. You've stated, Mr Robinson, you're the leaseholder. Are you the sole leaseholder, and is this in your personal name?
The lease is in both my name and Afters Nightclub Limited, of which I'm also a shareholder.
So it has that in there. Okay, so you're also a shareholder of Afters Nightclub Limited. Are you aware that the shares statement filed with Companies House shows Ms Taylor as the only shareholder of that company, and in fact you're not mentioned on those documents at all?
Until we file this year's annual confirmation statement, that will not show at Companies House. I can happily give you proof of the dates that I was shareholder.
So you've redistributed shares and not updated Companies House, is that right?
Any shares that go on there will be filed as part of an annual return. That's probably more of a question for my accountant than it would be myself.
I would hope that you would know, but that's fine. Let's move on.
Okay.
For Ms Taylor, broadly speaking, are you aware of your responsibilities as the sole agent and shareholder currently as documented with Companies House? Just broadly speaking, do you know what your responsibilities are there?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you know that you're the sole person responsible for the profit and loss of the company?
Yes.
Yes, okay, wonderful. And Mr Robinson, you say the lease is held in both the limited company name...
I'm just going to bear with 2 seconds because I know they've got a solicitor. Do you want the questions to come to you rather than Lydia? Or are you happy for Lydia to answer?
I think I'm happy for her to answer them. Yeah, thank you.
Happy if, as I address them, if you want to jump in between if there's a need. Ben, at what point did you want to jump in? Yeah.
That's all right. What was the last question, sorry?
It was about the lease.
Sorry, that was just to confirm the lease is held in both Mr Robinson's personal name and in the name of Afters Nightclub Limited.
Yeah, I'm happy to provide you a copy with the lease document, but I don't see the relevance.
No, I'm happy to take what you've said. Thank you.
Yeah, just a few from myself. Ms Taylor, when did you complete your award of personal licence holder qualification?
What do you mean by when I finished my course and got my certificate as my personal. So the course that's online. Sorry. So do you mean when I got my certificate? So when I got my passing grade for it,
Yeah.
or yeah?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to look for the exact date.
Do you know
But I
roughly?
can find that if you would like right now on my phone. Yeah. Cool.
Okay. Was this before or after you opened After's nightclub? Can you remember?
So when I completed my certificate, I believe it was quite close. I didn't pass first time. Obviously that's relevant, but I believe I actually passed on my third try. Doesn't make me look, but yeah, I did eventually pass my third time. I will have to look for the date. I'm sorry, I can't comment further.
In your submission, you are described as a constant presence at the premises and involvement in the business. As a responsible person under the Licensing Act, constantly present, involved, and with the knowledge gained from your courses you've done for your personal licence, why did you fail to ensure compliance before opening After's nightclub at the end of March 2024?
We didn't have a premises licence. The premises wasn't actually transferred to us till April, so I don't see the relevance of that comment.
Opening in April.
Okay, from when you opened your doors to the public and that, which would have been that weekend in April, why did you not ensure compliance before that opening weekend?
I believe we did have a visit from the council where we went through the licence in full. Do you have a copy of that audit to hand? I don't believe you left me with one at the time. It was carried out by Derek Stone and Colin Pollard.
Okay.
Do you have a copy of that audit with you?
I would suggest, regardless of whether that visit has happened, and if there is an audit trail for it, then all well and good. But still, why was it full compliance? Why were you not full compliant before you opened? Is the question.
As we've said in our submissions, things weren't in order. That's not right. We're trying to put things right now, and there's been an improvement.
Okay. And then again, after 4 months of trading, you're still failing to comply on the 12th of July. Why is that?
Sorry, I missed the question. Could you repeat it?
So since April, there's been about 4 months of trading, and you're still not fully compliant. Can you account for that?
Well, we say that now we are compliant, and that's why we've been inviting the authorities to come and have a look at the business. We want to engage with you, and we've invited that you do that.
Okay, Ms. Taylor, or to the representative, you could have taken the actions to meet the obligations under the Licence Act before this review hearing. Why is it taking a review hearing for you to now say that you are taking the required action and becoming compliant?
I think we self-identified that our old security team were at fault for a couple of things, hence why we changed them. Actually, following the visit that you made on the 12th of July, I did actually invite an external consultant down to give us some guidance, who obviously wanted to be our DPS and help us out. She's now got another daytime job, so she didn't. But I also invited Colin to our staff meeting the following day, so it wasn't until you didn't bring the hearing until over a couple of weeks after that. So we did actually reach out to you in the interim, put a lot of things correctly before you brought the hearing in front of the committee today.
I'll just jump ahead. Obviously, you've mentioned about inviting police licence into your internal staff meetings. Have you got any evidence to prove that? Because we've got no record on our system to suggest that that's been the case.
It's an email to Colin Pollard directly. I did forward it to my legal team and quite happy to show the court.
Is that part of the submission, Mr. Rawlings? I don't have a recollection. I'm not suggesting it hasn't happened, only that I don't recall being invited.
It's not part of the submission.
Is it not?
But this is a direct question that you've asked me about why we haven't engaged.
Can I just get clarification? Is the licensing team allowed to go to this premises when it's coming up for review? So, like the last 2 weeks, they're saying that they've invited you. Are you allowed to go? Or
We're allowed to go. However, if there isn't a trigger incident that requires an immediate response from us, certainly officers involved and named on paperwork might not consider it appropriate to go and do a solo visit at 3 o'clock in the morning, for example, just for those reasons.
any more questions?
Sorry, just bear me 2 secs.
Yeah, that's fine.
In the submission titled Dialogue and Cooperation, you've highlighted a section in an email sent by police in April. It reads that you are almost compliant with the requirements of the premises licence, which is a positive, but I do not feel that this has been the case since you opened. Your compliance has slowly improved whilst open and trading and highlighted by the responsible authorities. Would you agree that being almost compliant is the same as not being fully compliant at all? Only a more supportive and encouraging way of putting it.
I'd agree with that. I've said the same submissions all day and I maintain them. It has been a work in progress. They are now compliant.
Sorry, go on. If, as you state, you wish to demonstrate compliance to the responsible authorities, when were you fully compliant and what happened between then and our visit on the 12th of July?
As we told the committee earlier, we self-identified there was issues with our old security team, hence why we changed it. And like my statement said earlier, I think if you'd done that compliance visit the week after, we certainly wouldn't have seen those breaches on the conditions. I think we've been compliant probably within a week of you doing that compliance visit, and ever since, which we've invited you to review.
Within a week of that compliance visit would be approximately 5.5 months since you opened, is that right?
I didn't say that we weren't compliant
I've said
during
that,
other periods of times. So can you repeat the first question?
Yes, it was in, oh, hang on. It was asking why you weren't fully compliant between opening and the 12th of July.
That's not. We've had a number of compliance visits with yourselves, and I think we've been fairly compliant with those visits.
But you haven't been fully compliant for 5.5 months, have you?
Well, no, we've already stated that.
We accept that
Thank you.
there have been breaches. That's been borne out all day in its evidence.
I just want to touch on that. I feel that the breaches of the licence is being pushed on the fact of the security team, when there's loads of breaches on here that I wouldn't class as being the security issue. It would be the premises licence or the DPS. So I guess I'm just trying to hear some accountability, I guess.
Yeah, actually, I was the one that told the officer that the CCTV time was wrong. It recently changed to daylight saving time, and if you plug it into the internet, it changes back. Some weird bug in it. I was the one that actually told them that breach. The other breaches were, one was about SIA specifically, the other one was about having refusals and logbooks. They were taken with them by the old security team. One of the reasons we changed them is they weren't keeping records that we thought were completely accurate and up to date. You'll have to remind me of the other breaches you feel aren't generally driven at security.
Well, it's the serious health and safety issues and stuff like that. So my biggest concern is public safety. You're telling me you've done that. I'm just having to go off your word. Obviously, when you're going through this file of evidence, it's just trying to find the proof from you guys that you've done the work.
Sure. I just we maintain the toilets are in a particularly bad state of disrepair. That was the other breach that had been on there. as a nightclub general manager, we're constantly repairing the toilets. Maybe yourselves have been out to nightclubs and pubs. It's very difficult to keep those perfect at all times. They do get there's a particularly high traffic area that gets a lot of how do I put it, abuse from patrons. So but toilets being we generally keep them clean and tidy. We have a toilet attendant that's usually on site over the weekends, and actually one of the reason we even use the upstairs toilets is when we took over the venue, the actual downstairs toilets are in such a bad state of disrepair. We closed them, ripped them all out. There was actually a fake floor that someone could have fell through. We've ripped them out to turned that into an area of extensive dance floor space, which is the bit that we're currently dealing with building control about. But there's new toilets that are ready to go upon them being signed off by building control.
Don't have a picture of the new toilets at all, do you?
Not on me, no.
Members, any questions? Do you have any more? Sorry, I completely interjected there.
You mentioned confusion due to the number of different licensing officers involved with afters. We don't see this as confusion with other. Sorry, we don't see this confusion with other licensed premises within the Portsmouth area. How having multiple licensing officers highlighting failures at the premises confuse the requirement to promote the licensing objectives and comply with your licence conditions?
If I use one for example, we're still in disagreement and unclarification about what's a noise limiting device and what decibel limit that needs to be into. And I think there's 4 people here in this room that I've asked that question to that can't give me a definitive answer on it. But that could be seen as a breach. Although I don't think we're in breach, we do have on our amp rack, it does cut out at a certain decibel level.
Yeah, we haven't included that, but obviously in the appendices of an email from Mr. Pollard to yourselves, it does highlight that you need to contact environmental health over that.
And actually, it also says in the appendices that I did that. They told me a non-residential area doesn't have a decibel limit, and Colin himself actually lists in the appendices he was going to seek out the proper advice and give that to me. And this was on the, this was a statement that was made to me on the 12th of July, and thus far I haven't received any clarification back.
I'd just like to come in and say that due to commitments through the uplift in policing requirements through the summer, I haven't got to that yet, but I might throw the question back, why haven't you contacted them and asked the question yourself?
I said I did. There isn't a decibel limit for a non-residential area. I've maintained that from the day that we had a compliance visit in April with Derek.
Just in relation to your door staff, obviously it was highlighted on a couple of occasions where you only had 3 door staff after midnight when you are required to have 4. You state that there was a reason the company let you down. My question is, why, if you only had 3 door staff, did you continue to open and operate in breach of your licence?
Our licence is very strange in comparison to everyone else's in the Portsmouth area. In fact, I think it's the only one of its type that requires us to have a set amount of door staff from midnight only, whereas actually everyone else's says it's per the amount of patrons in venue, because equally I can have 0 door staff on a Monday and have 200 people there, but we wouldn't deem that very safe ourselves in running the venue. Although from midnight on a Friday I need 4 there on the night in question. There was an individual that was late. We were already trading by the time we need to have a door staff there by our licence condition. However, there was only 23 patrons in the building and we shut shortly after. So, as much as it was a breach, and it certainly won't happen again.
I think that answers the question.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Can I just confirm you've got a woman SIA on site as well, not just male?
We don't, but it's not a licensing condition.
How do you search women then?
We are not allowed. We can only search their bags. But that would be the same for men, because why would a man be allowed to search a man and a woman? There's only certain areas that we.
I just want to check, because obviously there's a lot of drug use that's being speculated about. Obviously, if you had to search a woman, is there something in place?
Well, the policy states that if we suspect drug use, we have to ask them to consent to a search. Someone can refuse that, and then we can ask them to leave venue. But it's only the police that can conduct a full search. We're not allowed to search certain...
Perfect. Answered.
Also, in the submission under the illegal drugs, there is evidence of customers being ejected after being found in possession of drugs. Why on the 12th of July do Fleet and Council licensing officers need to bring to your attention the use of drugs by customers and the intoxication of others? Bearing in mind there was only 23 people in there and you had all your staff there.
The girl that claimed there was a sexual assault, she actually told one of my staff members, one of my security team. We then found the patron and ejected him from venue. And actually, she was very, very thankful that we did that. She's actually also one of the girls that made a submission to this committee of a positive review on the nightclub. The other incident where it was alleged that someone was doing a line in the toilet was given to us by one of your team members and not told to any of my security team directly by yourselves.
Okay. Just in relation to this, you said about the sexual assault and you ejected the male. Why did you eject him and let him go and not detain him until police arrived?
We actually informed the officers that were on site.
Okay. And sort of going on in relation to the drugs, obviously it's been said that you were given an extensive drugs policy by us at the beginning. Part of that is or a proactive way of deterring drug taking is to do toilet checks. Do you do toilet checks? And if so, is there any evidence to support that is being done?
We do regular toilet checks. They're all documented in our new security log that we've kept immaculately up to date since 3M Security took over as our security team. We also have a toilet attendant at weekends, and there's a staff toilet sheet where they have to go check.
I've got nothing further, thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. I just wanted to get clarification in relation to Mr. Shaw's statement to the panel. You mentioned that because with the SIA matters, that it was irrelevant because there wasn't an offence. Can we just clarify that isn't the case? It was just that the Security Industry Authority chose to take no further action. That doesn't mean that there was a breach of the Act. It just means they chose not to take any action on this occasion.
No, I don't accept that. If they take no action, they take no action, and that's the end of the matter.
So you don't accept that on occasions authorities have a raft of sanctions, and if they choose not to take action, that doesn't mean that the offence didn't happen. It may well be that they just chose on this occasion to take no further action.
Are you asking me that that was their decision, or are you saying that was their decision? I can't comment on it. I'm saying that they took no action and that was the end of the matter. If you can say to me there was an offence but they took no action,
no,
then I'll
I'm sorry.
that.
Yeah, no. I just wanted to clarify that the statement you made compared to the actual investigation, although it led to a no further action, that doesn't necessarily mean that the offence occurred.
I'm not going to speculate on that. I don't think it's
that's fine.
proper
Thank
question.
you. I'd like to turn to the additional concerns that have been raised, and I fully accept that this can be regarded as hearsay because they're not here today, but obviously you can have regard to hearsay, and equally you can put as much weight on that as you want. But there are a number of allegations that form a pattern, don't they? Do they not? A number of people are coming forward with these complaints, and they're all similar in nature.
I don't know who you mean about these number of people. Do you mean with your intelligence checks?
These are people that have contacted as intelligence provided to the licensing authority. but they do wish to remain anonymous.
If you say that you've got them, I accept you have them, but I can't comment on whether they're similar or you know, what they're saying.
I think the suggestion was made to the panel earlier that these complaints come from the previous security company.
That is what I say for at least one of them. But if you say that you have other people giving you intelligence, I accept that.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
I've just got one quick question. Your drink promotion for alcoholic drinks, £1. Do you think that's sensible?
It's only offered on a Monday on shots of sours. It's purely on a Monday on shots of sours.
What's the percentage of alcohol in sours?
It's under what would normally be on a normal spirit. I don't know off the top of my head.
Sorry.
Do I have any more questions? No? Before we move to summing up, I need a comfort break. Unfortunately, I've got a weak bladder. So it does give you a few minutes to kind of get your summing up paragraphs together and everything that you want to say. So I'm just going to break for 10 minutes just so everyone can grab a drink. So be back for 12:20. Just gives everyone long enough because, yeah, I really need to go.
We can't talk to them.
Oh, and if you see us, you can't speak to us or look at us. We're not being rude. Perfect. Welcome back. It's 12:22. So we're going to move into summing up now. So we'll go to Derek first to sum up.
I've got nothing further to add, thank you.
No problem at all. We'll go to the police and Nikki, if you want to sum up.
Yeah, just to sum up, obviously you've heard from police in relation to the concerns raised and poor management of the venue. How this venue has traded for so long and not had a significant incident of disorder or a person come to serious injury or illness is pure luck. The way the venue is trading puts customers at a puts customers in a very vulnerable position by allowing the misuse of drugs and intoxication. And my question would be, can you allow this to continue and allow the operators to continually put customers at significant risk? Please follow the guidance in sections 11.23 of the 182 guidance, where it states, where premises are found to be trading irresponsibly, the licence authority should not hesitate, where appropriate, to do so, to take tough action to tackle the problem at the premises, and where other measures are deemed insufficient, to revoke the licence. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. No more. I will go to you.
I can keep it very brief as well, and for fear of repeating myself, I accept that there have been breaches. It has been a work in progress, but they are trying to improve and have improved and demonstrate that from the last 2 weekends in themselves. So I'm asking that you let their licence continue, and there'll have to be further visits and checks on them to make sure that they are implementing these procedures and that they are compliant. But I say they really have moved in the right direction. Can I assist you any further?
Okay. I just want to ask all parties if they're satisfied with everything they said. Is there any more they want to add? And if everyone just confirms through the microphone that they've got nothing else if they don't.
Nothing more from me.
Nothing further from police.
Nothing further for the licensing authority.
Perfect. Right, we are going to go into closed session now. This is where I give a rough time, and I look to Ben.
Obviously, you're going to have to make your decision. You're going to have to formulate the reasons behind that decision and get it all written down so that you can hopefully present it today to all the parties. I would suggest, going on experience, probably 40 minutes bare minimum. Realistically, probably an hour. So what I would suggest is that you announce that the subcommittee will retire for a minimum period, but if it takes the subcommittee longer, so be it. Let's just say 45 minutes, an hour. Then the parties can safely go away, secure the knowledge that the subcommittee won't reconvene and start reading out a decision in their absence. But it may mean that they're left waiting once they return for a short period, hopefully.
I've just spoken to the members and they're happy for an hour. So to make the time easy, I would say 1:30 as a minimum. And yeah, we'll come and grab you if you're outside after then, just to say when we're ready, all right? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chair. And just to reiterate, if obviously you do happen to bump into the members during this recess, they won't speak to you, they can't speak to you. It causes no end of issues, and that goes to all the parties here today, if anything like that happens. Thank you very much.